Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Getting Started with SQL Source Control module. In this class we're going to look at the differences between the shared and dedicated database development model and help you pick which one's right for you. Now why this is important is actually we make a choice on what development model we wish to use when we go through that linking process connecting our development database to our chosen source control system. So back looking in SQL Server Management Studio, if I bring up that link to source control dialog box, you'll see this is the area that we're talking about at the bottom of the screen here. And we choose, do we want to work in a dedicated database development model or do we want to work in a shared database development model? Now firstly, let's take a look at exactly what we mean by this. A dedicated database development model is where each of our development team have their own copy of the database to work with. So they make their changes in their own isolated sandbox, but then need to share those changes across the rest of the team via the source control repository. On the other hand, the shared development model is when there is only one development database and each of our team make their changes directly on that shared dev database. This means that there's only one way for the changes to go, into source control. There's never any changes that exist in the repository that haven't already been made in the database. And because of that reason, one of the key differences between using the dedicated database development model and the shared database development model is the concept of get latest. So if we work with a project where we're using a shared development model, then actually the get latest tab becomes redundant. There is never a need to get the latest changes out of source control. And so when you select this tab within the SQL Source Control window, you'll get this message saying, because you're using a shared database, the current version is always up to date. Now, one of the things that does become important in a shared database model, though, is who changed the object. Because when you're working with the dedicated model, it's only you who's made changes to your development database. You're the only one that has access to your development database. But with the shared model, everybody has access to the same database. So you need a method of identifying who's changed what when it comes to the commit tab. Now, fortunately for us with SQL Source Control, if we were to make a change to one of our objects, in this case, I'm just going to make a small adjustment to one of our stored procedures, potentially just changing this PRC get contact stored procedure by expanding this wildcard and clicking execute. Now when we come to commit the changes to source control, what we'll see is that we get this last changed by column, and this allows us to identify exactly who's made the changes to the object at commit time. So regardless of whether you choose to work in the dedicated development model or the shared development model, SQL Source Control is going to support that workflow for you. So in later videos, we're going to look at how we can actually make these changes and add them into the source control repository. I'm going to work in the dedicated database development model because that is considered best practice. But don't worry, if you want to work with the shared model, or that's the best way for the tool to fit in with your existing processes, then you can do exactly that. Thanks very much for watching.